September 6, 1976, Chuguyevka Air Base, Soviet Far East. A MiG-25 Foxbat screams down the runway and lifts into the gray Siberian sky, its twin Tumansky engines burning 30,000 pounds of thrust. It's a routine training sortie, 4 interceptors climbing in formation over the Primorsky Krai wilderness. Nothing unusual. Senior Lieutenant Viktor Ivanovich Belenko is 29 years old and has been planning this for over a year. He's sitting in the cockpit of the most feared fighter aircraft on Earth, the Foxbat. Today, he's going to hand it to the Americans. The moment the formation levels off, Belenko acts. He banks hard, shoves the stick forward, and dives for the deck. Within seconds, he's at 30 meters altitude, skimming the treetops of the coastal forests. He's hurtling toward the Sea of Japan at nearly the speed of sound. At this altitude, Soviet ground radar loses him. He's below the detection threshold. Behind him, his squadron is calling on the radio, demanding he return to formation. He doesn't respond. He's already gone. But Belenko has a problem. The MiG-25 is a fuel hog, one of the thirstiest aircraft ever built. At low altitude, those massive engines are gulping kerosene at a catastrophic rate. His original target is Chitose Air Base, a major Japanese military installation on Hokkaido where he knows American forces will be present. But the fuel gauges are dropping faster than he calculated. The warning lights are already blinking. He's not going to make Chitose. He needs somewhere closer. He spots Hakodate Airport on the northern coast of Hokkaido. It's a civilian facility. Passenger jets, commuter flights, families waiting at the gate. Belenko doesn't care. His tanks are nearly dry. It's Hakodate or the ocean. He lines up with the 3,000-meter runway and brings the Foxbat in hot. Far too fast, far too heavy. The tires slam the tarmac. He stands on the brakes. The MiG devours the entire runway and keeps going, skidding off the end onto a grass overrun area, narrowly missing a line of antenna towers. The engines spool down. The canopy opens. Viktor Belenko climbs out, pulls a pistol from his flight suit, and fires 2 shots into the air to attract attention. Then he puts the gun down and waits. Japanese airport security arrives first, followed by police, followed by pandemonium. A Soviet frontline interceptor is sitting in the grass beside a civilian terminal. Passengers are pressing their faces against the windows. Airport workers are standing on the tarmac with their mouths open. Nothing in the handbook covers this. Within hours, the Japanese self-defense forces have cordoned off the aircraft with armed guards and draped it in tarps. Within days, the entire world knows what happened. Moscow is apoplectic. The Soviet ambassador to Tokyo demands the immediate return of both the pilot and the aircraft. This is Soviet state property. Return the jet, return the pilot, or face consequences. Prime Minister Takeo Miki's government finds itself in an impossible position. Japan is a sovereign nation with obligations to international law. But Japan is also America's closest ally in the Pacific. The Americans want that MiG-25 more than they've wanted anything since the space race. Because for nearly a decade, the Foxbat has been the bogeyman of Western aviation. To understand why this matters, you have to go back to 1967, the Domodedovo Air Show outside Moscow, Soviet aviation's coming out party. Western military attachés are standing in the crowd with binoculars and hidden cameras when 4 massive aircraft thunder overhead in formation. They're enormous. Twin tails, twin engines, built like battering rams with wings. Nobody in the West has ever seen anything like them. NATO scrambles to classify the new aircraft and assigns it the designation Foxbat. Then, the speed records start falling. Soviet test pilot Alexander Fedotov takes the MiG-25 to altitudes above 37,000 meters. He pushes it past Mach 2.8, then Mach 3.2 in sustained flight. These aren't propaganda numbers. They're verified by the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale. Real records, real speeds. The West collectively loses its mind. The Pentagon's analysts look at the performance data and draw the worst possible conclusion. The Foxbat must be a superfighter, an agile, titanium-built air superiority machine that can outrun, outclimb, and outfight anything in the American inventory. The F-4 Phantom can't touch it. The F-106 Delta Dart is a joke by comparison. If the Soviets mass-produce this thing, NATO loses control of the skies over Europe. The anxiety is real, and it has real consequences. In 1969, the United States Air Force accelerates the FX program. a crash effort to design a new air superiority fighter specifically to counter the Foxbat threat. That program becomes the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle. The F-15 Eagle is one of the most expensive weapon systems in American history. Billions of dollars, thousands of engineering hours, an entire generation of fighter doctrine. All of it is driven by fear of an aircraft nobody in the West has ever touched, examined, or flown against. All of it is driven by assumptions. Tokyo stalls Moscow for as long as it can. Behind the scenes, American technical teams are already en route. Engineers from the Foreign Technology Division at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Defense Intelligence Agency analysts, Air Force test pilots, CIA technical officers. They arrive in Japan with toolboxes and cameras and barely contained excitement. Over a period of approximately 67 days, they take the MiG-25 apart, not casually, methodically. Every panel is removed, photographed, measured, and cataloged. Every bolt weighed, every wire traced, every system documented down to the molecular composition of the alloys. They pull the engines, disassemble the avionics, remove the radar, and lay the entire aircraft out on the hangar floor like an autopsy. And what they find changes everything. The airframe is not titanium, it's nickel steel alloy. 80% of the aircraft by weight is welded steel, not the exotic aerospace materials the West had assumed. The construction is robust, even crude by Western standards. Welded joints instead of rivets. Heavy, overbuilt, designed to withstand enormous thermal stress at high speed. But not designed for agility, not even close. The MiG-25 has the turning radius of a freight train. It's fast in a straight line, devastatingly fast, but ask it to dogfight, and it handles like a dump truck on ice. The radar is the real shock. The Smerche system mounted in the nose is powered by vacuum tubes, not transistors, not solid-state circuits. Vacuum tubes. Technology the West abandoned in the 1960s. The American engineers can't believe it, but there's a catch. Those vacuum tubes generate an estimated 600 kilowatts of power output, an absolutely staggering number that allows the radar to burn through electronic countermeasures and detect targets at extreme range. And vacuum tubes are inherently resistant to electromagnetic pulse. This means the MiG-25's radar would keep working in a nuclear environment when Western solid-state systems would fry. It's not backward, it's a deliberate design choice, brutal, pragmatic, and very Soviet. The overall picture that emerges is not a superfighter, but a specialized interceptor. A missile with a man in it, designed to do one thing. Fly very fast in a straight line at very high altitude and shoot down American bombers before they can reach Soviet cities. It was never meant to turn. It was never meant to dogfight. It was never meant to be the thing the West feared it was. The entire F-15 program, the billions of dollars, the decade of anxiety, all of it was based on a phantom, an illusion created by speed records and Cold War paranoia. On November 12, 1976, the Japanese returned the MiG-25 to the Soviet Union, in crates, disassembled, packed into 30 wooden boxes, and shipped back like IKEA furniture. Moscow is humiliated. They know exactly what happened in that hangar. Every secret the Foxbat held is now sitting in filing cabinets at Wright-Patterson. But the aircraft is only half the prize. Viktor Belenko himself proves to be an intelligence windfall of equal magnitude. He's taken to the United States and placed under extensive CIA debriefing. He's facilitated by analyst Peter Sivas and a team of Russian-speaking officers who will spend months extracting everything Belenko knows. And he knows a great deal. He describes Soviet pilot training as brutal and shockingly inadequate. Flight hours are rationed, simulators are primitive, maintenance is unreliable, with aircraft frequently grounded for lack of spare parts. He tells them that Soviet pilots routinely fly with malfunctioning equipment because reporting defects means paperwork, delays, and punishment. Morale in the PVO Strany is terrible. Alcoholism is rampant. Officers supplement their rations with food stolen from the mess hall. The picture Belenko paints isn't of a fearsome military machine. It's of a bureaucratic nightmare held together by duct tape and fear. He reveals details about Soviet air defense doctrine, radar coverage gaps, intercept procedures, and the classified performance limitations of the MiG-25 that no satellite photograph or signals intercept could ever provide. He tells them where the bases are, how the alert systems work, what the pilots are trained to do, and, more importantly, what they're not trained to do. It is, by any measure, one of the most significant intelligence coups of the entire Cold War. Belenko is granted political asylum in the United States. He becomes an American citizen. He takes a new name for a while, lives quietly, consults for the Air Force and intelligence agencies. He writes a memoir published in 1980 called MiG-25, co-authored with journalist John Barron. It becomes a bestseller. In it, he describes not a dramatic moment of courage, but a slow accumulation of disillusionment. The broken promises of Soviet communism, the poverty, the lies, the suffocating surveillance. He didn't defect in a flash of inspiration. He defected because he couldn't breathe anymore. Back in the Soviet Union, the fallout is severe. The entire MiG-25 fleet is grounded while engineers redesign its most sensitive systems. The compromised avionics are scrapped. New identification friend or foe codes are issued across the entire Soviet air defense network. The upgraded variant, the MiG-25PD, enters service with redesigned radar, new engines, and modified systems. All of it because of one pilot and one flight across the Sea of Japan. The cost to the Soviet military is incalculable. And in the West, a quieter reckoning takes place. The Foxbat myth is dead. The superfighter that justified billions in defense spending turns out to be a blunt instrument. Magnificent in its way, but fundamentally misunderstood. The F-15 Eagle, born from that misunderstanding, goes on to become the most successful air superiority fighter in history. With a combat record of 104 kills and 0 losses, an aircraft designed to fight a Phantom becomes the most lethal dogfighter ever built. History has a sense of irony. Viktor Belenko lives the rest of his life in the United States. He remarries. He becomes an aerospace consultant. He gives lectures. He eats American food and drives American cars and watches the Soviet Union collapse from the comfort of his living room in 1991. He reportedly smiles when the hammer and sickle comes down from the Kremlin for the last time. He told interviewers he never regretted his decision, not once, not for a single day. He dies on September 24th, 2023, at the age of 76, in a country he chose, under a flag he flew toward at treetop height with his fuel gauges on empty and his life hanging on the hope that the runway would be long enough. It was, barely, but it was enough. The MiG-25 Belenko delivered sits today in a restricted facility. Its secrets long since extracted, its menace long since dissolved. But the lesson it taught endures. In the Cold War, the greatest weapon wasn't always the fastest jet or the biggest bomb. Sometimes it was the truth. And sometimes it took one man 30 meters above the ocean to deliver it.